If you want to use a filter on a timestamp and you're looking to know whether or not it happened within the last 24 hours, you're going to have to use a workaround. Let me show you what I mean. So one of the core parts of email automation is filtering based on date stamps or timestamps. And you can do this in Customerio. So I have a canvas here, a campaign, and let's say people are flowing down this campaign and they come to this branch. And there's an attribute on the record of the person that's a timestamp. So I've created this dummy attribute here that's a timestamp, okay? And so if I want to see if that timestamp happened, say, before a certain amount of time, I can do that. So I've built it to say, okay, let's look at this attribute. It's a timestamp. So I'm looking to see if this timestamp has happened before a relative date of a day ago. You'll notice that this day is not configurable. I can only go from now or ago, and I can do any sort of number here, but I cannot do anything smaller than a day. It ends up being the same in segments. So here's a dummy segment that I've created. I'm looking at that same timestamp field, and if I want to look at anything that happened before or from now, a relative date of that timestamp, I'm limited to days. I can't look at hours, minutes, and so forth. Same thing with events. If I'm looking at events, if I'm trying to see if an event happened within the last hour, by default in a segment, I'm limited to days. So we have to use a workaround. So this is how the workaround works. Luckily, Customerio is powerful enough to do this pretty easily. So the way that I've done this is I've created a step that updates a new attribute on a person's record. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm going to look at the date stamp, and then I'm going to use liquid code to ask if that date stamp has happened less than 24 hours ago. And you could do this for any sort of time frame, right? If you wanted to check and see if it happened in less than 5 minutes ago, you could do this. And for the sake of this video, we'll just do 24 hours since that's where our limit tends to be. So this is a create or update person step. So that's here in the builder. If you scroll down, there's a create. You don't even have to scroll down, but there's a create and update person. You would drag that on, open it up, and edit the details. So you need to create a new attribute, and you'll put that attribute here, name it whatever you want, and it'll help you remember. So I named it as like, is the timestamp less than 24 hours? Because that's the question I'm trying to answer here. Then in the value section, you're going to choose liquid because you're using liquid to fill in the value for that field, right? So here's a liquid code. And what you do is you assign a new variable, the value of the timestamp that you're querying, right? So in this case, I called it last timestamp, but you can see it's the customer attribute of 24-hour timestamp. That's where our timestamp is, and that's what we're checking to see if it's happened in the last 24 hours. This just helps filter the date down into seconds, which is critical because we're going to use a formula to see what the difference is, okay? So make sure it's down into seconds. Now, we're also going to assign another variable of a current timestamp to now. So when it hits that point in the workflow, we're going to assign this current timestamp of where it is right now, and again, move it to seconds. And then finally, we're going to assign this field called time difference. We're going to get the difference between now and when our timestamp we're wanting to query against happened, and see how many seconds are left. So in a day, there's 86,400 seconds. So if the result of this formula is less than the 86,400 seconds, then we're going to put a value of true, meaning it was less than 24 hours ago. If it was greater than the 86,400 seconds, that means it was more than a day ago, and we're going to return false. So you can see here on a test record that I've created, this 24-hour timestamp. I had it today, just a few minutes ago before I started this video, which means it happened less than 24 hours ago. The value is true. If I pull up another test record where the value was more than 2 days ago, so the 10th, just a little bit before, now the value turns to false, and it works. And instead of doing this date stamp query on the original field, all I have to do is add a condition, look at the attribute. We're going to do our timestamp, our new timestamp field of less than 20 hours. And if it is true, it will go down one branch. And then if it's not, it will go down the other. Okay? So that helps us filter based on less than 24-hour timestamp values. If you have more questions like this on workarounds that you need to complete, shoot me a message or make a comment below and I'll see if I can help out.